Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a preview. This one's from Mythic Games. It is a brand new game on Kickstarter. It is a 2 or 4 player skirmish game using a game board and miniatures set in this fantasy world.
Yeah, the fantasy world's pretty neat. So it's a time of peace. Everyone is bored. There's nothing to do. There's no war, no crime. So what do we do instead? We go back into history. We pull out some champions. We bring them forward and we battle it out in a pretty cool arena. And it's just an all-out brawl.
To start the game, each of the players is going to draft heroes, and this can be done in one of two different ways. You can have a casual draft if you're just playing competitively with one of your friends. In order to do so, you just create a giant common pool of heroes, and you're going to draft those into your pool. Each player is going to end with 3 heroes in their area. Or if you want to play in more of a tournament structure, you can do a competitive draft. This is where each player is going to bring 5 of their own personal heroes. And then the other player is going to remove one of them from that pool, meaning they're going to have 4 left. And then you're just simply going to draft the final 3 in order to create your pool of heroes. What you're trying to do, however, is collect victory points in this game. This is a race, and you want to collect 5 victory points before the other player. In order to do so, it can be done in one of 2 different ways. Simply by knocking out one of the other player's heroes, you collect a victory point. Very simple. The other way is right here you see an objective timeline. And this is actually going to introduce new cards and push these cards to the right-hand side and eventually falling off. These are also objectives that are going to earn you victory points, either 1 or 2, depending upon at the start of your turn if you meet those, meaning that if you meet it at the end of your turn, the other player has a whole nother turn in order to push you out of the area or to do something to affect that. These will also collect you victory points, and the first player to collect 5 is going to win the game. So let's talk about the heroes, because this is the big draw. These miniatures are awesome. There's going to be 12 of them in the Kickstarter, and we know there's probably going to be more, of course. These all have 6 cards that are associated with each of the individual heroes, and they all represent 3 cores of magic.
Right, so each hero will have 6 cards, 2 of each of the cores of magic, starting with yellow, which is your creation. You also are going to have blue, which is your manipulation, and then you're going to have red, which is your destruction. Obviously the one that's going to do the most damage out on the board.
And that's incredibly important because on your turn you get 3 actions and 3 actions only. Off to the left-hand side of your player tableau, you're going to have these 3 cores of magic, which are represented by these 3 different tokens. And you're going to have a standard action card out in front of you as well. On your turn, you're basically flipping these tokens to take actions. There's 2 basic types of actions you can take. One is using the cards that you have in your hand. So if you have a particular colored card in your hand, say for instance a yellow creation magic, you can use this by flipping your yellow core and then using the associated champion to take that action. These are things like moving, doing direct fire, indirect fire, any kind of special ability that's on that card. And you're going to do 3 of these actions according to the 3 colored cores you have. If you don't have a yellow card in your hand and you have that yellow core still available, you can take a standard action. And each of these colored cores is going to have 1 standard action that you can take. You can also just expend it flat out to move across the battlefield. The battlefield's represented by a number of different hexes. These hexes are broken into your starting area. That's where you're going to spawn when you die, and also set up at the start of the game. We're each going to have our own individual sides. You're going to have 3 statues. These are important because they have color coordinating around it. You have purple, you have red, and you have yellow. These are going to tie in very specifically to the goals that you have. And then you have traps. At the start of the game, each player is going to lay 2 traps face down. These traps can represent things like taking damage, being rooted, meaning that you can't move, or even being stunned, where you have to lose some of the cards of that character that come into play. The turn structure is very easy, though.
Yeah, so every turn, player is going to have 3 things that they do. They're first going to check and see if they have met any of the conditions of what it will essentially call the victory track here.
Yeah.
Next, you're going to then choose to activate your cores. You'll take the actions on the cards or on the standard action card accordingly. And then the last thing you're going to do is clean up. So upkeep phase. You're going to flip your cores back over to their active side. You're going to draw 5 new cards. So any cards left in your hand get discarded. What that allows you to do is set up for your defense in the next round.
Yeah, and defense is very important. You can actually burn your cores on the other player's turn in order to play some of the defensive cards that you may have in your hand. The trick is, though, any cards that you burn and any of those cores that you flip over on the opponent's turn, you don't flip them back at the start of your turn. You're always doing it at the end of your turn. So there's this balance. Do I want to be super aggressive, or do I know something is coming my way, and do I want to be defensive with my characters? So you're going to be doing that round after round, expending the cards. Now, we didn't really mention this, but the cards in your deck are actually represented by your different characters that you have. So if you have 3 different heroes with 6 cards each, that's 18 cards that are going to be in your deck, and they're all going to be mixed together. So sometimes you may get a bunch of cards from one hero and a bunch of cards from another hero in the next turn. So it's this balance of hand management in the game, some tactical movement on the board, and then the other thing you're going to notice in this game is you don't see any dice anywhere, right?
No.
So you're not rolling dice, which is fantastic. All the damage in the game is done directly by the cards themselves. They all have an X number of damage, some special abilities that they'll do, and you compare that damage on your actual character with the opponent. So let's take a brief look at what that may look like. So if I look through my deck and I see a red card here, if I activate my red core, it allows me to move 1 space. It allows me to do a direct line of damage 2 spaces away, and then 1 damage, and then possibly some kind of special ability after the attack, in this case, pull. So you're going to be moving around the battlefield, pushing, pulling, and trying to manipulate yourself in the right positions in order to kill the other player and to claim these objectives.
Right, and there's a lot of interesting tactics going on here. So as we look at the game board, and we didn't note this, but this is a prototype, though it doesn't really look like it. These miniatures are amazing.
Right.
So as we're looking at it, Jeremy mentioned the statues earlier. You can't move through those.
Right.
You might have an ability that allows you to attack over them, but once you hit those, if you move somebody into a statue, the side of the arena, if they cannot go anywhere, maybe it's another hero, they're going to take damage because they can no longer move. Some other interesting tactical things you can consider here, you also have the ability to plan. So let's say you draw your hand of 5 cards, you've got multiple of the same color, which is going to happen. You really want to use this card the next round. You can go ahead and flip your blue core to plan and put that card back on the top of your deck before the discard part of the game.
One of the other interesting parts is that although some of the characters natively have defense in them, and you're going to be damaging those people and they're blocking them, there's a lot of cards and a lot of situations in the game when you're just doing direct damage and it feeds right through those. Those are all marked on the cards themselves. This game is really a game about tactics. And as much as you don't realize it the first time you play it, it's getting in the right position at the right time and trying to time all those things together. Now, we mentioned that the Kickstarter is going to have all 12 of the heroes in it, and it's only going to be $50, which I think is a ridiculous price.
It's incredible.
Also, there's going to be a bunch of goals, and they're not stretch goals, but they're new things they're going to release at the end of every single one of the days.
Yeah, so we're hoping to see some pretty neat things like more heroes, maybe additional cards. We're not sure, but we'll be looking forward to seeing what comes out.
If you guys have any questions about Super Fantasy Brawl, make them in the comments below. I think this is one people are going to be really, really excited about. It's half Magic the Gathering, half X-Wing mixed into just a super fantasy brawl. So we will catch you guys next time. Take care.